to face Squirtle.
Yeah, the countdown has begun, and Cloud Kingdom was indeed the map of choice. So this is the last game, and I always got a feel for these players. When they travel so far, they spend so much time practicing, and it comes down to one game. And it's highly entertaining for you and me, DJ Wheat, but you know these players have a lot riding on their shoulders, and each round you advance through the tournament, you're just making so much more money, and you're one step closer to, of course, that grand prize. So if you're just tuning in from the last stream, as they did just wrap up their most recent games there, this is, of course, a TVT here, and spawning up in the top right side, winning the first game with early upgrades, losing the second game with an early timed attack that didn't quite work out. It is going to be Liquid TaeJa.
And in the bottom left, we have got our Red Terran, a very, very aggressive opening in game number 2 that rolled his way to victory. But now in game 3, can he bring it back? It is Startail Bomber.
Indeed. Watching Sean try and cast Startail Bomber last night was quite comedic because his name of, of course, Curious in the game. And when you're really tired, man, you just want to go with that name that's on the screen. It's like plastered at the top. You just want to go for it. But of course, it is Bomber. And I just want to say, Bomber, for some reason, he just looks like one of the most intimidating players. Like if I found myself setting up across the booth, I'm just gonna be like, you can have this one. Yeah, this one's on me.
I agree with you, actually. And then of course he like smiles, and you're like, okay, he's not as
he's not gonna tear my nerd heart out.
Right,
oh wait, he just did.
Now we do have a Rax up here from TaeJa all the way in the corner. Possible just, you know, way to throw your opponent off, but we'll see exactly what that is going to mean here coming up, as we just have more SCVs in production. Kind of the boring part of a TVT, but it's okay. And in that last game too, I just wonder what TaeJa is thinking. You know, is Bomber going to go for something ultra aggressive again like he did in the last game? You know, is it something that I need to be worried about, or something that I could possibly, you know, get defeated by? And I think that's actually one of the tougher things to do when you're in that third game series. You convincingly take game number 1 and a great little game, but your opponent goes mad aggro, full tilt on you. And you know, like mentally that can kind of throw you off. You know, what do you do after that? So
all right, well, I've been filling in my little brackets here. Yes. So Stefano has advanced, of course, from the last series, and then also we saw MC. Oh, yeah, and MC did end up beating Sase. So that means in the next matchup, it is going to be Stefano versus MC. I would like pay money just to see that matchup. Yeah. Like that is going to be insane. MC, you know, going down to our. Getting past Sase 2-1, and Stefano I think he's only dropped 1 game so far in this entire tournament. I think that's correct, but I may be a little bit off. Either way, man, that's going to be an explosive matchup. Yeah, I mean, Stefano's looking really, really dangerous right now. He loves his PVZ as well. He seems to have no problems with it. So if anyone can do it, I would say MC is definitely going to be in contention to possibly do that. Of course, that also means that the losers of those matches will face off for a third-place match as well, where there is still a lot of money on the line. And let's get back to this game because we do have some things unfolding. TaeJa has taken 2 refineries after expanding on the low ground. Still has that Rax up there in the corner. It's the Rax that has been naughty, has been sent there. It's the shame corner, as we like to call it over at our house. Every Marine that comes out of there is like, man, I'm so sorry. But yeah, over on the other side, this second gas finally added here for Bomber, and his factory was thrown down right away. We do have the factory going down for TaeJa as well. So these guys equalize, kind of going different paths to reach the same point. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's something that you will see a lot in TVT. Something you also do see a lot in TVT, though, is one player going mech and one going bio. But right now, I mean, with these earlier timed factories, I mean, this isn't the earliest by any means that you can get a factory, but, you know, it's right after your expansion, and that's going to be a very early expand for both of them. And you can see, once again, TaeJa loves going for the early game macro, at least on the 2 bases, because he wants that additional income for those upgrades. And you know what? I would imagine that in TaeJa's position, you know, it's up against everything's on the line here. So what he's most likely going to do, I would assume, is go for the game he knows best, and that's going to be the safe macro play. He does have a starport here, and we saw him do this before, but he still went for the big upgrade play. So I'm curious to see if he pulls that out again. Yeah, you're right. I think it's kind of interesting. In fact, he is going to get a siege tank right away as he goes ahead and lets that build up. This is exactly what he did in the last game. Meanwhile, we do have that first Banshee underway for Bomber, but no cloak coming out on this. Is he's now just gearing up, throwing down an additional Rax and getting the tech lab on his first Rax
also finally planting down his bunker at the front, where TaeJa's actually already salvaged that one. And we do have just the Viking coming out, so doesn't look like he's going to commit to the Banshees, but it's kind of a cool opening because you have the option to.
Yeah, I wish I could ask TaeJa exactly why he put that bunker on the high ground, because that's not really the location you want to defend. But maybe he was worried that if there was an early timing attack, a build that maybe he knows about where he has to lift off and fall back, he can land the command center on the ramp, block it off with that bunker. And I think the positioning of it, if he landed the command center here, it would make a nice wall in there. And that's my best guess as to why he built it.
I think you're pretty right on that one.
And we do see him now adding on the factory back onto that tech lab. Siege tanks are on the way. And canceling one of those, that wasn't an accident. He just didn't mean to queue up two there. So canceling that is going to be okay. And look at this, TaeJa going for the rocks right there. Cancels it off, is going to go ahead and retreat back home. I think he may be expecting this Banshee, and he's going to be expecting, right? Look at this. He is as prepared for this as you can get at this stage. The Vikings there, the Marines are falling back.
Yeah, he's going to get a couple of SCV kills, but I don't think enough that's going to actually justify the cost of this. He's going to bring it back, trying to get that mass repair off. It does end up getting 4 kills before it is finally thwarted. And TaeJa did force his opponent back into his base. He didn't force him to make any additional bunkers or anything like that because he knew he probably didn't have siege mode at that time, and he was right in that. So we've kind of stabilized things just a little bit. Upgrades have now gotten started here by Bomber, and he's definitely a little bit further ahead. Hello!
Hi, everybody. So everyone in the audience just tuned in. It is currently tied up 1-1. And DJ Weed, I gotta say, so far on our stream, we have had amazing games. I expect nothing less here. And in this game right now, nothing too dramatic has happened. I think like one Banshee has died and that's it. But once again, we do see double upgrades. TaeJa loves doing this. We've seen this in almost every single game. And indeed, I mean, it looks no different here.
Yeah, I mean, just a really quick recap of what happened in game number 1. TaeJa just really pumping ahead in his upgrades and eventually was able to chip away at the defenses of Bomber to ultimately take the win. And then in game number 2, Bomber going for a ridiculously fast stim timing, and with a ton of units, he marched right up his opponent's ramp, TaeJa, and TaeJa fell. That puts us in game number 3, tied up, and this will determine who moves on to face Squirtle.
Indeed, and Squirtle did play very well in his games. That was an extremely close series. In both those games, it ended up going into the late game about 35+ minutes, and the scores each time were around 200,000, and they were only 1,000 apart between the winner and the loser. So Squirtle playing very well, barely able to scrape by, but for now, it does look like Bomber may be setting up to try and secure this third base down here. He doesn't seem too eager to move out as he is swinging back and forth down there at that location. And TaeJa, man, he's all established up here. He's got a siege line going and all of that, and just a couple scouting Marines here on the field. You can see he has an SCV through the middle, another Marine at the watchtower here, so he's relying more on his map vision. And we also saw in the last game, DJ Weed, them canceling their buildings quite a bit once the scans went down. So they are pulling out not only the mind games, but also the micro tricks as well. But we may see this game, I'm completely unsurprised, go into the mid and late game as TVT looked at this, a third base on the way.
Yeah, and you know what, this is going to be really interesting because TaeJa has pretty much made a full-on transition over to mech. He's getting Blue Flame, he's working on +1 plating and his weapons for vehicle, and also getting a few additional Vikings out. So all those upgrades are going to be finishing soon. Siege mode already done, as we can see. He's got a few tanks sieged up here at his third, and so this is truly going to be a bio versus mech clash up here between Bomber and TaeJa, and I'm excited to see what the result will actually be.
Yeah, I mean, usually you would see TaeJa having extremely strong micro, and you still need micro with mech, but it takes a lot of APM to position those units. It's just that once the battle starts, really the only thing you can micro is where the tanks are firing and also those Hellions. You have to make sure that those Hellions don't get killed off, and that's something that a lot of players have talked about in the past, is that Korean Hellions, their micro is just so good. Now, right now, Bomber is not going to want to engage up this ramp, and also, DJ Wade, I'm still blown away by the amount of upgrades TaeJa manages to get. The second his 1-1 was done, immediately starting 2-2, and we were talking about before where Bomber is going to have to punish the amount of money spent on those upgrades. Can he actually do it here? But look at TaeJa moving back and forth, making it nearly impossible. He may try and force Bomber to go for drops.
Ooh, already tilling one tank here with a great positioning here by Bomber just outside the opponent's base. Does look like he's going to back off here a little bit. Now the Blue Flame Hellion's going to give him a little bit of map control, but at the same time, I feel like Bomber can siege up, take a portion of the map as he would see fit. And he's going to clear out these rocks now, but I feel like Bomber is definitely going to have the map controls. Got to be careful not to lose a lot of these units. He's going to go up and just burn away a few of these Marines. Got to avoid that siege line, though. One Hellion does go down. He's got to be careful. Going to try to just eat through this little Marine army, but already at 1-1. I don't think it's going to fare well.
It can be so tempting to engage those Marines because they do take initial damage from, or additional damage, excuse me, from the Hellions. Plus he has the upgrade. But you have to remember that Marines are not Zerglings. Marines actually have guns. They can shoot back at you while you're shooting them. And so that does mean that the Hellions are not going to be as effective in that regard. And I love this by Bomber going for the Destructible Rocks. If you're wondering why he's doing this, it's because when a Terran player goes mech, he wants your units in a giant funnel. That means that you're going to be doing a lot of splash damage, similar to Protoss with Side Storms and the Colossus splash damage, even Archons as well, because you want those units streamlining through there, through that bottleneck. Now, opening that up allows him to micro so much easier, and he's just going around. He is on rock duty. He's wanting to clean up as many of these as he can because he doesn't know where this engagement is eventually going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, right now I do like the pressure that he's been putting on. I feel like he did put TaeJa a little bit on the defensive here. I mean, obviously, he was trying to get that third established as he was coming in. We do now see that Bomber has established his third as well, getting both of those refineries up, continuing to pump out units, but you'll notice that moving away from Marines and starting to add a ton of Marauders to the composition, typically very good versus mech, especially if you can catch like a little group of Hellions off to the side or maybe some tanks not sieged up. And so that does mean that the tank, or excuse me, the mech player has to be very, very meticulous about how they're attacking, where they're attacking their position, etc. But here we have a few blue flames moving on in. SCVs could get flamed away, but look at that. The Marauders do come in to try to do as much damage as they possibly can, and you'd think that this would be doing a ton more, but we only see about 7 workers killed.
And once again, TaeJa starting his 3-3 as soon as his 2-2 is done. So he is going to be way ahead in upgrades throughout the entire game, because even when this +2 finishes, he's still already at 2-2 himself instead of the 2-1. And it does look like, though, Bomber has found a sweet spot over here on the left side that is relatively undefended by TaeJa, but he just has to lift off this command center that he's going to be landing somewhere else anyways. It looks like he wanted to set that up for his 4th base, and the siege tanks here are going to be able to protect that building itself. Now, does TaeJa engage here? Does he try and force this army away? These siege tanks are not siege, but you have to remember, he's trying to kill running siege tanks with his own siege tank, so they're not going to be catching up or anything like that, and it does look like Bomber turning around here. This is a very tense moment, but I don't think we're going to see a forced engagement quite yet.
No, but if he can keep these guys busy on the other side, we do have another force moving up. You'll notice it is equipped with a couple of medevacs as well. He might possibly choose to go for some drop play, which is typically very good versus a mech army. Of course, unless you've got those Hellions out and in a good position, it's very, very hard to have that mobility, but there's a ton of Vikings as well, so he's got to be careful.
Oh, here he goes.
He's going to move forward.
He does decide to stem and go for it. The tank line is established here, though, but this is the micro that you need to win, or you need to use to win in these type of battles, and he is indeed going to crush through there. 2 attack, 1 armor. Need to be careful with the Hellions as well. How did that favor? Well, actually, TaeJa still has a lot of units here. He could do quite a bit of splash damage. Does establish his siege tank line, but Bomber right now is starting to attack this 3rd base here, and TaeJa absolutely has to secure this, because if he loses this expansion and Bomber expands, he is going to be way, way behind. And I love this from Bomber, splitting up his units here, going to be doing a 2-pronged attack. The Hellions not able to ever attack an undefended location as they do get intercepted there. TaeJa is running out of options.
And this Vile Force is going to move into the natural. There's a lot of Marauders in there. He could do a ton of damage. We see Hellions already starting to fall down, and these tanks are going to have to move out of position. Is he going to counterattack at the 3rd at the exact same time? We will see most of these units cleaned up here. But we did have a few more workers go down there, about a total of 7 on that side as well. And now the Vikings are going to land to take out that tank. And I'll tell you what, TaeJa handles it quite well.
He did indeed hold that off. Now, he did lose a little bit more in those engagements, but tanks on the high ground are what were able to attack those units while they ran through the choke. And right now, there is 3 undefended siege tanks over here. They will be able to do quite a bit of damage to these Hellions. No, decided to go for the other units instead, but killing out those 3 tanks, that's going to help even it up just a tiny bit more. And excuse me, no, it was Bomber who ended up losing more there, so even adding on to that loss deficit now, but he does have the 4th base here, which means that every second that goes by, he's mining a little bit more. But that's not many seconds here, DJ Wheat, as TaeJa knows that now is the time to expand.
Looks like there was a drop, or at least an attempt over here by Bombers. We see a very, very hurt medevac making its way over, but another one's going to come over. Unfortunately, it is seen by this Viking, and great map control here by TaeJa, as he will shut that down. It is killed, but that medevac not really going to be able to go in, do any damage. And look at the tank count over here for TaeJa. already sitting on 20 tanks, 14 of these Hellions as well. And I'll tell you what, a good position here by TaeJa. If he rolls through this army, he could be able to push forward, take out that fourth, and maybe even do some damage to the third as well.
You gotta remember, TaeJa's upgrades are looking about as good as you can get with 3-3 right now. His opponent is at 3-2, but the armor deficit means the splash damage will be so much more here, and TaeJa is gonna be pushing out. Now the supplies are relatively even here, so it's gotta come down to the angles. There's a counterattack gearing up here on the top left side. Is he able to slip into that expansion? It is completely undefended. So many mules are here too. He can't afford to lift this up, and the SCVs transfer over. This can be the momentum that Bomber absolutely needs. He's also winning the battle, it looks like, on the right side, but it has come to a stalemate a little bit. These mules need to get out of there and get out of there quick. How many workers have been killed off so far? A total of 28. So he was able to get himself back in this game very quickly. Yeah, those mules, unfortunately, still at the third, not doing anything, and that's never a good thing. It does look like this army is kind of getting cleaned up a little bit over on the east side. The tank count is definitely in favor of TaeJa here, but here we have another attack at the third, moving up the ramp. There's not a whole lot here, just a couple of siege tanks, and now we're having all the SCV pulls. The other tanks are way out of position. The Thor is going to try and get up in here and take out these Marauders, but Marauders do additional damage versus the Thor and really every meching unit that you can get here. And this expansion now has been locked down as well. He's been able to kill off 2 expansions, and right now TaeJa has to lock down this 4th base. He's not able to do it here. So even though he won that engagement, he got himself out of position, which is exactly what you have to do when you are going Marine and Marauder. Get your opponent out of position and catch their undefended expansions. That's exactly what we saw. It's going to be so tough here for TaeJa to catch back up. Oh yeah, he's been completely shut down. TaeJa now losing his third, trying to get that reestablished, going to bring this Thor forward to try to eliminate these tanks, and that is great. However, it is pretty much just a tank army here, and here we go from the natural as well, stemming up the ramp. Only a few of those tanks sieged up. He does lose a couple, but manages to clean that up as well. I think the biggest, though, the biggest damage being done here is the fact that TaeJa lost that third, a good amount of SCVs. He's now getting his 4th reestablished, but not having that mobility makes it that much harder. He had those tanks way out of position, Husky. There was just nothing he could do to defend that. And right now, I mean, the units lost tab is relatively even, but you can't go based on that alone because he was being so smart with his Marine Marauder. I mean, we see this time and time again where you're going mech versus bio. You have to be mobile with your bio. You can try not to engage the army directly if you can help it, unless it is unsieged. And TaeJa, since he was already sieged, he says, well, I'm just going around. I do like this from TaeJa, though, able to land that command center. He was able to save these command centers from before, so he can start rebuilding his SCVs 5 at a time, which is exactly what he needs to do in this game. Because look, it's 35 workers to 63, but Bomber is not going to be making workers here for a little bit, and so TaeJa is going to be able to catch up in that regard. Now, if he can get the perfect sieges here, he may be able to get back into it. He also has a lot of money to spend. There is going to be a drop over here at the expansion. Don't know if it's going to be a ton of damage, but it's still just killing off more and more workers. Oh, but he is going to intercept this army that tries to go in there and get the job done. It's just a few of these Marauders versus a couple of Hellions and a Viking as well. He's going to clean up everything there inside the natural, and those Marauders are just superheroes now. And unfortunately, these tanks not being able to go in, that is a really unfortunate for TaeJa. He does kind of protect that 4th as a result of this, but a lot of SCVs were killed. Again, look at that, 54 workers have been killed by Bomber here in this game. Only 7 killed off by TaeJa right now. And it's one of those situations where Bomber is abusing the power, the strength of the mobility that he has. And also, I mean, what unit does a Meching Terran have that can cost-effectively kill Marauders? It's very tough. You would want to try and get siege tanks within the range of fire, but instead he was trying to use Hellions and Vikings because those are the most mobile units, but also they are not very good versus the Marauder drops. So I think that's what we're going to see Bomber continue doing here and not running into the siege tank line, because that's a sure way to lose unless you have overwhelming forces. But at this point, TaeJa really wants to secure this base up here. There's not a lot of workers there right now. He's still, no, he's actually not producing any workers right now, even though he really needs to. He is going to be pushing down here and will clean up this group, may even kill a medevac full of units if this Viking is given enough time. And it is going to continue with the units lost. He is now in the lead, but, you know, he's still having trouble securing these expansions. Uh-oh, and he got that force from Bomber moving up to the northwest, and he is going to have nice coverage here of these siege tanks and this back line, but here we go, not having vision. Meanwhile, we do have TaeJa pushing forward and finally getting some damage done on the economy of Bomber. He may not know it yet, but he can slip in and get this one done as well. Unfortunately, those Hellions will never be able to take that out before it is a planetary, so he needs to get this army down, try to eliminate it as quickly as possible, but
I mean, right now I feel like Bomber has the advantage because he's got the mobility.
Although he did just lose a lot of his units up here at the third base of TaeJa. TaeJa's army is still looking mighty terrifying. The supplies, though, are going to be favoring Bomber, but, you know, the army supplies are almost identical here, so these battles can still go either way. The expansion up here, though, once again, is going to get locked down. More workers here being killed off, 65 in all. A couple more will go down as well. He needs to make sure to lift off this command center. I don't think he's watching that, though, as he is looking down here at the major attack. Can he lock down one of the most vital bases that Bomber has? Because this is going to give up the complete right side control, but no, he just attack moves into this, and it does look like the siege tank line will be able to clean up. He does have a couple units remaining, but right now, DJ Weed, I don't think he has enough to deal with even just this small force.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that TaeJa had a really good attack there on that point. He was taking a lot of damage. It looks like he shut down the mining at this third, but here we now have Bomber getting rid of another of TaeJa's CCs, and now he's essentially on a no mining, I mean, he's not, well, he's mining in his natural here. He's about ready to burn down over here. He needs to get some SCVs on that guy real quick as he throws down a ton of mules. And there he'll go ahead and get the repair going. But I feel like Bomber, he's got the economy. Even though he lost those bases, he's got a phenomenal army right now. And if he takes out these tanks, what is left back home? Not a whole lot.
I mean, at this point, TaeJa's way behind in supply unless he can muster up enough resources to get another expansion going. But actually, he's dumping what few resources he has into repairing this. Wouldn't be surprised to see him stop that repair because he needs those minerals desperately. And there's really no safe location for him to expand. He's got to try and land that command center. And here we go, a drop on top of these last few remaining tanks. TaeJa is going to get cleaned up here, and Bomber in a very close series. It seems to be, you know, it's very clear who the winner is going to be right now because he just has so many Marauders, so many Marines, and I think a lot of it comes down to those Marauder drops just doing way too much damage. Yeah. And at this point, TaeJa has no answer. Now, one thing TaeJa can do here is turtle as best as he possibly can. He's got to try and set up his tanks in the perfect positions, but this is just so many Marauders. And you got to remember, Marauders are larger, so there's less units getting hit by the splash damage, which means that they may be able just to beef their way up here.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a victory march here for Bomber, or at least he believes so. He could potentially deny this expansion again. He will force it to move away. SCVs might go down, another mule dies, and all the tanks aren't sieged up. He's going to step forward and go right for it.
And I think that's going to be it. He's only got 2 tanks remaining in this location, and GG! Liquid TaeJa was able to get his upgrades up, but unfortunately the positioning and the mobility of that Marine Marauder ball. There's TaeJa on the right side. Bomber's going to be your winner on the left side. So that does mean he is going to go on to face Squirtle, which should be quite the matchup there.
Oh yeah, that one should be quite good. Very interested to see how that one will actually play out. Squirtle, I heard he's got some experience versus Terran. Recently vortexing like 80 bazillion battle cruisers. So that's definitely one I'm looking forward to. And then upstairs in the other matchup, we, of course, are going to have Stefano versus MC.
Yep.
And, you know, those are two guys. They've been pretty loose-lipped this tournament. Definitely their predictions have come true as well. So I can't wait for that interview, Husky. That'll be a good one.
It's going to be amazing. So, guys, don't go anywhere. We just have the 2 matches left, also the third place and, of course, the finals.
Oh, yeah.
I think people would be a little disappointed if we didn't cast those. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be back here soon. I'm Husky.
And I'm DJ Wheat. More Red Bull Battlegrounds coming at you.